knows when you come out my way. That's why my field stays packed on Fridays. We hunting, fishing, good living, just soaking up every country second we're giving.
Hey, it's Laura Starling, Justin Kelly. We're here with the Old Boots podcast, and my friend and Justin's friend, Jaime Kaplan, is with us. Hey, Jaime.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you. Always great to see you.
Good to see you, and so good to get to know Justin better as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, Justin is definitely a man you want to know.
Absolutely.
And we have been, we were just talking about how we first met, and you were going to tell the story.
Yeah, so we had a tennis carnival at John Drew Smith Tennis Center. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You were our DJ, and I thought, oh, my gosh, this is really cool. I'm going to meet Laura Starling. And so I was on court 6, and you had your equipment set up underneath the pavilion, and I saw you hitting tennis balls against the wall. And because I had said something to you, I think, about coming out there, and you're like, no. And so then I turned around, and you were hitting balls against the wall. So then I finally got you, convinced you to come out on the court.
You got me on the court.
Yeah.
And found out very quick that I was not very good. Okay.
But you have other talents. You have other talents.
But I'm sure that at the time when we met, I did not realize that you are a legend. I mean, you are famous. I'm sure I didn't know that day because we really didn't know each other. That was the first time we met. And then, of course, I find out that you have played at Wimbledon. You've played the U.S. Open. I mean, you are a superstar. But do you remember, too, that for the longest time, I thought you were a golf superstar?
Oh, really?
Do you remember that?
Funny. Yeah, I kind of remember that now.
But then I finally figured out. So yeah, we want to go back and kind of take us through where it all started at Tatnall, right?
Right. At Tatnall Tennis Center. I grew up on those courts. And John Drew Smith was my tennis coach. And unfortunately, he passed away my senior year. And they were just building those new tennis courts on Northside Drive, right off of Northside Drive. And originally, they were going to be called Northside Tennis Center. And they decided to name it John Drew Smith Tennis Center.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's nice.
And John Drew Smith was the coach. And see, I never knew that. I never knew that. He was a tennis coach right here in Central Georgia. I never knew that till now.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know.
Right.
You know, especially because he died in 1978 in November of 78. So his portrait's up in the facility, but a lot of time's gone by, right? So not a lot of people know who he is. But my first trophy is actually buried with him.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So tell me, what age did you start playing tennis?
I was 9 years old when I really got into it. I think when I was, tiny and would go to these, like at the club, we go to some summer camps and where you do tennis and maybe you hit some golf balls, I don't know, and go swimming. It's probably mostly babysitting at that age. But when I was 9 years old, there used to be a professional men's tennis tournament in Macon. And the list of people who played here is unbelievable. We had Roy Emerson and Rod Laver and Stan Smith and Bob Lutz and Tom Ocker and just a lot of big names, Fred Stolle, a lot of big names from back in the 70s. Well, a lot of times and I did this when I first went on the tour, you would stay with a family. So there would be families that would offer, they called it home hospitality. And so we housed a couple of players during the event, Jan Kukal and Jan Kodish from Czechoslovakia at the time. I guess now it's Czech Republic. And have y'all heard lately they call it Czechia?
Czechia.
I did not know
I've heard that.
Czechia.
Yep, Czechia. That's the new thing to say. I was watching the U.S. Open, and they kept saying Czechia, and the announcers were kind of saying, oh, gosh, we got to get used to saying Czechia. But
Czechia.
Back then, they were from Czechoslovakia. In fact, Jan Kodish, a couple of years after he stayed with us, he actually won Wimbledon.
Wow.
But Jan Kukal took me out to the club and threw tennis balls to me for about 20 minutes and took me home and told my mom she had a tennis player. Well, here's this professional tennis player who said, about a 9-year-old, you've got a professional tennis player. And so that day I decided I was going to be a professional tennis player.
Wow.
So, it's just like any kid who I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, whatever. And so I just set my sights on it. And so that was what I was going to do.
So you knew that early on. That's something that a lot of people don't know what they want to do. And you knew that at 9 years old.
9
That's
years
what you
old,
wanted to
that day, that exact day.
Wow.
It was interesting too. One time I was at at Wesleyan College. They had asked me to come speak to a group of middle schoolers they had for something there in the auditorium, and I was talking about tennis and how I got into it. And at the end, it was questions, and one girl raised her hand and she said, "What would you have done if you hadn't become a professional tennis player?" And no one had ever asked me that, and I'd never thought about it. And I'd never thought about it from a standpoint, I'm saying I didn't want to be a professional tennis player, and I didn't think of it as, oh, I'm going to be a professional tennis player. I thought of it as that's just what I want to do, and that's what I work toward. So it never crossed my mind that I wouldn't be.
That you wouldn't
And
be.
it wasn't because I thought I was so good. It was that I knew I was going to work that hard to get there. So it was an interesting question I had never been asked, and it kind of took me aback.
So what would you have done if you hadn't have been a professional?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. You still don't know the answer to that question.
I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe I, would have been a singer, just kidding.
We'll talk about that later.
I have no idea.
Wow.
Because you never saw anything else in your vision.
Right.
But that.
Right. I majored in business management in college. So I did think about my career after I was a professional tennis player. So I knew, I thought maybe I want to manage a club or, just use my business management that I'd done in college. But I was playing on the tour, and the job came open at River North Country Club, which became Healy Point Country Club later, which is now back to being River North Country Club, which is really cool.
Right.
The grandson of the original owner owns it now, and he's one of the owners. And so they went back to the original name, which I love. But the job came open at River North. I was still full-time on the tour, and I applied for it, and I told the owners or whoever I interviewed with, I said, now, I'm still playing on the tour. I'm gone about 6 months out of the year. And they said, well, we'll make you the director of tennis touring pro, and you can be the director of tennis while you're here. And then the touring pro, you tell us your schedule when you're going to be gone. So it was a great opportunity for me. And I'd already a little bit dabbled in, we'd be at a professional tournament, and they would bring kids in and have an opportunity to work with kids that maybe had never played tennis before, some that had. And so I enjoyed that, coaching a little bit, teaching a little bit. And so I took that job in January of '89, and as fate would have it, I tore my knee up at Wimbledon that summer, that July. And so I already had a job.
Wow.
How lucky was I? How many professional athletes have a career-ending injury, and then they just go home and they walk right into
go to work.
Go to the office.
Go right to work.
Yeah.
Well, looking back, so you knew that early. Can you remember like the first tennis tournament or something that you won that you look back and was like, I knew then I'm going to be good?
So I remember the first tournament I played was up in Atlanta at Bitsy Grant Tennis Center, and I actually took a set off the number one player. I didn't win,
right,
but I won one of the sets, and off the number one player in the South. And all these people were telling my mom, that's the first set that she's ever lost. And so, that was 3 months after I started playing tennis.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah,
3 months.
3 months after I played my first tournament. 3 months after I started playing.
And then, of course, through your high school years, you won a lot of trophies. Yeah. A lot. I mean, I want to talk about that, but I also want to know about the trophy that's buried with John Drew Smith. Tell me about that.
So it was my first trophy. I
So it was
won.
the very first trophy
Yeah.
you won.
You were 9 or 10 years old when you won that?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I can see it like it was yesterday. I went down to the funeral home. With
So
my
he
mom.
was, I mean, you were probably his prize student.
Yeah.
And you were how old were you when he died?
I was, let's see, it was fall of 78. So I had just turned 17.
Gotcha. Okay.
And did his family ask you for that trophy, or you just volunteered it, or?
I don't think his family even knows. I don't know. Maybe they asked. I take that back. I think what they said to me was, we need to ask the family. And if it's okay with the family, we'll do
Yeah.
it. And so they did it.
And they did, and it
Yeah.
got, wow.
Wow.
So you won a lot of trophies during those years in high school.
Yeah.
Do you know how many? Do you still have them?
So what I ended up doing, and this was really cool, that someone had suggested to take the plaques off, the plates
Right.
Yeah.
off all the trophies and then just put them in, a neat, like frame them or something like that. I got as far as Rutherford Trophy because what I did is I took them all to them. They took the plates off for me and they could reuse
Right.
some of the trophies. So I got that far and they're in a bag, the plates.
You were going to have them put on plaques, but they were. Got
So you still haven't done that.
No, I still haven't.
So is it?
But I have some cool trophies that that I didn't take the plates off. Like in my garage, I've got Stratford Best Senior Athlete. I think that was really cool. That was something that I really, growing up and seeing my idols at Stratford that played basketball or played tennis or and then they'd have an assembly and they'd announce the best senior athlete, and I was like, God, I want to be that one day.
And you were.
Yeah. So that was a neat thing to win.
And then from there, you went to the University of Georgia,
Right.
played a couple of years.
Played a couple of years at Georgia. I grew up a Georgia Bulldog and always wanted to go there. And so I signed a 4-year full scholarship with them. And at the time, the tennis coach was also the assistant sports information director. So we didn't have a full-time tennis coach. But the men's team
They had
got
it
a
all.
lot of the attention. They had Dan McGill. They had their courts. We had the girls' courts. They had the men's courts and they had the ladies' courts. I mean, I'm telling you stuff that was early Title IX. Title IX had already been enacted, but not really, 100% adhered to.
Enforced.
Yeah. And so the men had their courts, and if they were playing UCLA out in California, and we were playing, someone like Georgia Tech in Athens, we played on the top courts, the ladies' courts.
Wow.
We could not go on the men's courts. The only time in 2 years that I played on the men's courts was we hosted the SEC championships, and we had to provide more than 6 courts. So I got to play on the men's court.
So they had to let you guys.
So they had to. And it was funny. It was kind of ironic. Years later, I was on the USTA Georgia board, and we had our summer meeting in Athens.
Right.
And we had a fun tennis. They had this event. We had this fun tennis thing at the courts. I got to play on
You
the
got to
men's
play on
courts.
the men's court.
But so I take a little bit of credit for Georgia's women's program getting to where they got, because after I left, they hired a full-time tennis coach, and then 2 coaches later, which was pretty quick. The first 2 coaches weren't there that long, but the coach that they hired, Jeff Wallace, was there for 38 years and won like 7 NCAA titles, and he just retired last year.
That's a good run, 38 years.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So did you leave? I'm sorry, Justin.
Go ahead. Go. You good?
Did you leave Georgia because of that? Because
Yeah.
there was no full-time coach? Or?
Yeah, and so I just felt like I wasn't getting what I needed to stay on that track to be a professional tennis player. And I think there were a lot of distractions there. I was in sorority parties. At that point I didn't drink. So I'm not talking about that kind of partying, but just football games and people I knew and being close to home, going home a lot, and just a lot of distractions at Georgia. So between not having what I felt like I needed in a coach and then having all these distractions that, being pulled here, there, and everywhere. So I decided to go to Florida State. I connected with her coach. We played against them and just somehow connected with her coach. I observed her and her coaching style and just her interaction with her players. And so I figured, okay, well, Tallahassee's not, I'm kind of a home girl. I love Macon. So I had an opportunity to go far, far away for tennis. Got recruited to a lot of colleges that were not in the neighborhood and just wanted to be close to home. And so Florida State wasn't too far away. It was almost like being in Georgia too.
Right.
North Florida is really South
Close
Georgia,
enough.
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, did you enjoy being a Seminole or a Georgia Bulldog more? You better, I guess, go with the Seminole.
Are there any Seminoles watching this podcast? I enjoyed them in two different ways.
Right.
So I can't say I enjoyed one more than the other.
Gotcha.
I enjoyed them in two different ways.
I gotcha.
Because one was very important to my tennis career, and the other was very important to me as a person.
I gotcha. So, back then, that would be during your younger years of, being of like Olympic age. Did Olympics ever come into the scene to possibly compete in the Olympics?
So tennis was not in the Olympics yet back then, but it did. I think it was in, maybe the mid 80s. They brought tennis back to the Olympics. I can't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, I would have loved to have done that, but I wanted, I wanted to be on that Olympic team, but I was never high enough ranked American to be on the team.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I sure wanted to do that.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. When they brought it back, I was like, wow, I want to do that.
So, of all the playing on the world tennis stage, what was the most exciting?
Got to say Wimbledon. I think that's, if you ask a golfer, professional golfer, that same question, I would imagine they'd say the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So for me, it was Wimbledon. I loved playing close to home. Like when I was playing, there was a tournament called the Family Circle Cup, and that was in Hilton Head. And then Amelia Island, they called it the WTA Championships. That was in Amelia Island, and those two tournaments were back to back. And so it was really cool to play that close to home because so many people from home were there. So it was neat to have 20 or 30 people in the crowd
Cheering for
that
you.
were cheering for me. And in Hilton Head one year, I played against Martina. And so, someone grabbed my mom and drove her to Hilton Head so she could watch me play
that.
Martina.
Did you beat Martina?
No, lost. I think the score was 6-3, 6-3. Played her in doubles and had some really good matches in doubles, especially like in Hilton Head. One time I played Steffi Graf in doubles there. We lost 7-5, 7-6.
Wow.
And we were down 5-1 both sets and brought it back. The first set 5-1 to 5-all, lost 7-5. The second set down 5-1 and brought it back to 5-all, and then we lost 7-6. But I'll never forget, Steffi's dad came up to me after the match and he said, "You know how to play doubles." Doubles and singles are completely different games.
Right.
Yeah.
Completely different. And I just had, for some reason, this, it wasn't something that was really taught to me. I just had this innate knack for doubles. And so, I got to a point when I was playing, I was winning doubles titles on the it's called the satellite tour back when I was playing, kind of like the minor leagues of baseball.
Right.
So I was winning tournaments and then losing in the qualifying of the singles. So my doubles ranking was going up and my singles ranking was just
Going down.
Well, not going down. It could only go one direction at that point when I first started.
Okay, I gotcha.
But so at some point I had to make the decision. Well, do you play Wimbledon doubles or do you go play, in Wichita, Kansas? Nothing against Wichita, but that's what came to mind of a place I went to play.
Right.
Do you go play a satellite tournament in a small town, a small tournament, or do you go play Wimbledon? And of course, went and played Wimbledon, and that's how I played the 4 Grand Slam tournaments. I never played singles in the main draw of any of the Grand Slam tournaments, but played doubles in all the Grand Slams in the main draw. 9 times.
For all our listeners that are listening that are super interested in hearing your story, but they've heard Wimbledon because I've heard Wimbledon, and I actually know a little bit about it, but Wimbledon is in London, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, gotcha. And
That's
that's
right.
like the World Series of tennis, right? That's the big
it's
tournament.
the tennis mecca. First year I went, my mom and my sister Barbara went with me, after I found out I got in, and then they made plans, they came. And so it was just neat to experience that with my mom and my sister. And I'll never forget, there was this, and so many things have changed there, but there was this player area that you could walk through, and it was blocked off. But the fans were, all up there, and the players would walk down there and they'd stop and sign autographs, or they wouldn't,
Right.
depending on who it was.
Right.
And so the first time I walked down that way and someone asked me for my autograph, and then as I was signing, I turned and I looked toward my mom and sister, and they were crying. Aww. It was really neat. But it rained, as it does sometimes in London at Wimbledon. That's a joke.
Yeah.
I know.
So my first match got pushed back a couple of days, and as it turned out, it was my mom's birthday that I got to play my first Wimbledon. So it was really cool to win.
Wow.
Go up and shake hands, and then I turned to my mom and I said, "Happy birthday."
Aw, that's the sweetest story.
That's the good stuff right there. Yeah.
And we were down, let me tell you, we were playing Peanut Louie and Pam Casal. Now it's Peanut Louie Harper. And we lost the first set 6-0. We lost the first game of the second set. So we're down 6-0, 1-0 before we even win a game.
Wow.
We won that game, and I like to tell the story that I thought, okay, now everybody who's played Wimbledon's won a game, because I was determined not to lose 6-0, 6-0. So at least we won a game.
Right.
And then we came back and won the second set. I think we were down 3-1 or 4-1 the second set. And we won the second set, and then we won the third set.
That's amazing.
So I was undefeated in Wimbledon for a day.
For a day.
For a day. I'll tell you, the next day I got very intimidated because I don't know how many listeners out there remember when Ann White wore a bodysuit. Have you ever heard this story? Ann
never heard
White,
it.
who was a great player, but not, one of the top players in the world. She was a great player.
Right.
Probably top 100, top 50, but not like top 10, the ones who get all the endorsements, right? So she came out in a white, they called it a cat suit, the bodysuit.
Right.
And the organizers didn't know what to do because the rule was you had to wear all white. But they didn't have any rule that said you couldn't wear a bodysuit, right? So she came out there in a white bodysuit, and they had to let her play her match.
Right.
Because there was no rule that she couldn't.
There wasn't a rule against it.
Right. And so she became an overnight sensation.
Oh,
I
if
the
social media would have been around during those times,
Yes.
that would have made her right.
She would
by
have
itself.
3 million followers
Right.
the next day. And then she would have been a social influencer. And
Right.
she, but that skyrocketed her career as far as marketing.
Right.
I mean, next thing you knew, she was doing a Prince commercial on TV and, just all this. So it was great.
And she got a lot of endorsements and things
Right,
like that, and
right.
wasn't even. I mean, was good, but
Yeah.
wasn't nearly as good as the people that were getting
Correct.
endorsements. I
Right.
got you. Okay.
But so we played her the next day in doubles. So you can imagine how many people were at that match. They were just piling in. She wore regular clothes the next day because she had, done what she intended to do, I guess.
Right.
And then maybe they had a talk with her and said, maybe not anymore.
Right. Calm down a little bit.
Right. But the people that were there to watch her play the next day and cheer for her. And so it was kind of rough.
intimidating and
it
rough,
was very
yeah.
intimidating. It was, yes, very intimidating. So we lost the next day.
But you definitely wanted to win that one, probably pretty bad.
Yeah.
So how many years of Wimbledon did you compete in?
I played in 5.
Okay, I got
in 5, and I don't know if you people out there can see all these scars on my knee, but I went down there, and so on July 5th of 1989, I was playing, I was actually playing singles. It's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. They used to have something called the Plate at Wimbledon, and it was for people who lost first round singles or who played doubles only. And there was prize money in it. And then also you got a per diem. So, you know, if you're playing doubles only or lost first round singles, you're like, great, this is a great way to make some extra money, and they'll give you a per diem while you're still in the tournament. So I was playing in the Plate, and I was literally losing 6-1, 5-1, and it was 15 all. And I'd already torn my knee up in high school. I tore my ACL and didn't get it repaired. And so I hit a shot, and I anticipated the ball going the other, that my opponent would hit it over here, and she hit it back this way. And when I turned to go back this way, I just totally ripped my knee to shreds. Wow. In fact, to the point where I grabbed it because I honestly thought it was going to be dangling,
right.
Which it wasn't. But I just held on to it for a while until the trainer got out there, and she's like, move your hands.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
This is bad.
So, you know, it was like a scene. They carried me off on a stretcher and all this. So anyway, I had done some additional damage to my knee and got my knee repaired. I had an ACL repair, and I had every intention of going back on the tour. But like I said earlier, I had a job, you know, the day after I got home. I went to my job the day after I got home from Wimbledon. And so I just settled into that. And I had my first charity event that must have been September.
Okay.
And I had that event, and I guess the bug bit me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to 1989. I'd done a little thing with Virginia Wade the year before with Dr. Bill Barnes. Mm-hmm. With we did a little fundraiser and brought in Virginia Wade, but it was that first event that I did in September of '89 that the bug bit me to raise money, and
you've been doing that ever since.
But I realized, because when I brought in Virginia Wade, yes, that was wonderful, because Virginia won Wimbledon in 1977. That was bringing in one person for one day and doing something, raising a little bit of money. But then it was that next year that I started what now is called the 5-star Kevin Brown Russell Henley Celebrity Classic. Back then, the very first year was the Charter Celebrity Tennis Classic. And so what I did is, and I didn't realize at the time that what I was doing, because I just was trying to put this event together to mimic some events that I'd played in when I was on the tour and met these people. But I didn't realize that I was just setting the stage for really the rest of my life. But we had Franco Harris and Hank Aaron. We had Tony O'Dell. I'm going to, listeners that are probably 50 and older.
People love to hear it, yeah.
So Tony O'Dell, who was on Head of the Class. Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah.
So he was the one that wore the tie and a good-looking guy. Shirley Hemphill from What's Happening.
Okay.
We had Lyle Wagner from the Carol Burnett Show. We had Art Matrano, who was in Police Academy 1 and 2. He was the one that got when they put the glue in his shampoo and he got his hand stuck in his hair. That was Art Matrano. We had Jennifer Savage from St. Elsewhere. And Robert Fuller, who was on Emergency, and Laramie. And so we had this huge event. They all came, because I used to get teased about being from Macon, Georgia,
right,
when I was on the tour. And I said, one day I'm going to have an event and you guys are all coming. So they all came.
And they all came.
They all came. It benefited. Back then it was called the Association for Retarded Citizens. And then to be a little more, I guess, what you call politically correct now.
It became the ARC.
It became the ARC, the Advocacy Resource Center. And we raised $23,000.
Wow.
And
In
I thought 1989, and I thought I was hot stuff. Raised $23,000.
Which, and to your plus there, 23,089. I mean,
Yeah, I wonder what
That's
that
right.
is. And
I don't know what it equals now, but I'm sure that'd be a couple 100,000 at
Really?
least. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Interesting.
That's amazing. That's big. And so then the bug got you for real. Then
It did. It did. I saw what I could do with the connections I had made. Just like one year, we brought in one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the way we were able to do that, and it all was for free because it was someone, I had met the attorney for them when I was on the tour. And so I realized that I could use the contacts that I had made, like when we added a golf tournament. I used to play with Yonex tennis rackets. So let's see, 89, 99, 92 is when we added golf, and we needed golf prizes.
Right.
So I contacted the national sales manager for Yonex tennis, and he's like, yeah, we'll set you up. So the very first year having a golf tournament, the winners of the golf got a set of Yonex irons, which at the time, they were a lot more expensive now, but at the time, if they even make them now, I'm not sure. But at the time, they were top of the line.
Wow.
Golf club. So irons we gave prizes to first place gross and net. So you're talking 8 sets of irons, and then 8 sets of drivers, and then 8 golf bags and 8 more drivers for fourth place. And so at the time, I think it was like $22,000 worth of golf clubs.
Wow.
And so that was utilizing a contact I had made while I was on the tour. So I realized that the people I met, the contacts, the celebrities, the players, I've had some players come in over the years back when it was a tennis tournament. Now, we do golf and a clay shoot. But while I was doing it, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I was too young to realize what I was doing. But then at some point, I'm like, hey, this is all because you were blessed to be able to
That's right.
hit a tennis ball.
Right.
But look what you can do now, what that vehicle is to help others, and not just be that professional tennis player and then come home and just be that retired professional tennis player.
Right. So that started early on. That's 92. And so the first one I was 89 it started in, right.
Right.
And so now we had moved up to like in the 92s, but so the other day I got to go to one. I had a great time at it. And you guys raised way north of $1 million, 1.4, am I right?
1.24.
$1.24 million for everybody that is listening. It was, So, Mr. Charlie Cantrell, he's a huge part of it now. What year did he come along? Was he there from the beginning with you?
So the first year it was a Charter Celebrity Tennis Classic, and then Charter went public, and they had to back off from doing things like that. And so the second year, it was the Fred Harkins Volvo Celebrity Classic, Tennis Classic. And I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, and Fred Harkins was here. Yeah. So the third year, it was about, I don't know, a month or two out of the event, away from the event, and it was the Fred Harkins, Volvo Tennis Classic or whatever, and Celebrity Tennis Classic. And he calls me and he says, Jamie, I can't do the sponsorship. And I was like, what? He said, business is down. I cannot do it. Can't, my partners and I talked about it. We can't do it. And so I called my brother Mike, crying. And I said, what am I going to do? This tournament's in a month. And then he goes, I'll make one phone call. I'll call you right back. And literally he called me in 5 minutes. And he said, I spoke to Charlie Cantrell, 5-star Mazda. And he said he'll sponsor it.
Amazing.
So you think about that. You think about how much money that event has raised over the years and what good that event has done to now 4 charities.
Right.
With the rescue mission being the main one, but the ARC back then and Macon Volunteer Clinic and in FCA. The tournament almost went away in 1991.
Wow.
Almost went away. If my brother had not made that phone call, and if Charlie Cantrell had said, I can't do it,
Right.
it wouldn't have happened. And would I have tried to do it the next year? Probably. But you don't know.
Yeah. I mean, because there's no telling. I mean, if it would have flopped that one year without the sponsorship,
Right.
I mean, it could have went away. But
It could have.
wow, what a team was made when that
Right.
happened, right?
Right.
When
And so the
Charlie
next
jumped
year,
on the team
yeah.
with you.
The next year we added golf,
Mm-hmm.
and Kevin Brown started playing. But little known fact, Kevin played tennis in high school. So
I didn't know that.
I'm scared to take him on, so especially now. So I've never played him. But Kevin started playing in the golf in '92, and then when he signed his big contract with the Dodgers, and I don't know if listeners out there remember that Kevin Brown was the first $100 million man.
Yep.
In Major League Baseball, and now they're making that in a year, right? But that was a 5-year contract for Kevin, and so he had been playing in the golf tournament, and then the year he signed that contract, I asked him if we could put his name on the tournament. Right. So that's when we dropped the name Mazda in it, and it became the 5-star Kevin Brown Celebrity Classic. We went from raising $40,000 the year before we put his name on it to $70,000 that next year. The first year we had his name
Just
on
with
it.
the name recognition. Right?
Just with his name on it. And, I love to tell this story when I'm talking about Charlie Cantrell, because not only did he save the tournament, but he is the tournament. I mean, I've been involved with a lot of events, know of events, and, usually the title sponsor, they stroke their check and they show up the day of the event and they enjoy all the, the amenities. They invite friends or business associates or whatever. But that's their involvement with it.
Yeah.
With Charlie, he not only is the title sponsor and puts a ton of money into it, but his top level management is all involved. And, they work their vendors
Right.
to support the event because they believe so much in the charities. Charlie is chair of the board of the rescue mission, and he spends a lot of time with Pat Chastain, who is the amazing. I don't know if he's the CEO or the executive director. He runs the place, and he's amazing. Charlie spent a lot of time with him, working with him business wise, and he just has dedicated so much of his life to the rescue mission. It's amazing.
Well, and so what's happening right now is what me and Miss Jamie were talking about before the podcast. She has a heart for people, and she has a heart for she doesn't try to give herself enough credit on this stuff. She wants to highlight everybody else, and so we want to let everybody know who Mr. Charlie Cantrell is. He if you go to 5-star anything in Central Georgia or Tennessee or Florida, those 5-star automotives, that's Charlie Cantrell. That's
Right.
who we're talking about, and. Of course, he does a lot for Mercer University.
Right.
They built the stadium over there. They're building a baseball training center, and it started something huge in your life, and he was able to help you do big things. But if you read anything about Miss Jamie, or if you were to Google her right now, you would see that everything she does is for other people. Even right now, when we're trying to have a
Conversation
highlight
about
of her
you.
life.
That's
She
right.
is trying to give credit to other people, and that is just an amazing tribute to who you are, and that's and we're just blessed to be able to be out here and talk about this with you, because you dedicate every single thing you do in your life to other people, even this private little thing out here in the middle of the woods. You want to dedicate it to somebody else, and we do appreciate Mr. Charlie, and Mr. Charlie's going to be watching this, I'm sure, and he appreciates it, but. I wanted to let her run with this just a second, because it shows just how big of a heart she has for other people, and that she doesn't want she doesn't do it for pats on the back. She's done everything that she has done because she has a true heart for people, and that is amazing. And the people that are listening and watching, I hope you guys go out and look up what she has done, because this is not going to give it any justice of what we're able to do here in an hour and a half. I hope everybody goes and looks you up and it really kind of, enjoys somebody that is a true giver. Somebody has committed their life all the way from when she first started working, her real job or whatever you want to call that, all the way to now. You've dedicated your life to it, man, and that is amazing, Miss Jamie. That is awesome.
Well, I had great role models. I really did. And growing up, my mom, I'm very blessed. She's still here, 96 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
96. But I know the entire time growing up that from when I was a toddler, I can remember her doing things like volunteering for so many different organizations. And then as I got old enough to help her, and we would make these things, for different, activities or groups or just things that she was doing and I could help. And so, to be a toddler and observe someone that you're with so many hours of the day and to observe what she was doing, and that was my
Absolutely.
roadmap. That was my
A base to build off of.
right. Right.
And that base has led to how many millions of dollars?
Well, the 5-star event alone is we went over 15 million this year.
That's awesome.
And and what I love about it is every single dime stays in Middle Georgia.
Right.
Every single dime.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do there's hardly nothing you can do these days where when you give $1, you can be assured that dollar, that entire dollar goes to making that happen, because that's just not available in charity work anymore. But with that 5-star classic and the celebrity classic right there, every single dime is used right here in Middle Georgia for the cause, right?
That's right.
Was there ever a time, just in my short period of being able to do, philanthropy and that kind of thing, there was the third year for Miracle Treat Day, I felt a little overwhelmed because the bar kept getting set higher and higher, and I know you've went through that. The first year maybe you guys hit $1 million. That next year the pressure was on.
Right,
Am I right?
right.
Can you remember the first year you guys hit $1 million?
Oh, sure. And so I didn't finish my Charlie Cantrell story earlier because I started talking about him being, so involved with the event. But when we got to 70,000, and I'm thinking, God, this is great. If we can hang out around 70,000 for the next 30 years, we're going to do great, right? So we got to 70, and Charlie goes, so we used to do a big presentation check to the mission, but he goes, okay, next year we're going to raise, one day we're going to raise 150,000. And I was like, God, there's no way. And then we got to 150, and Charlie said, one day we're going to raise 300,000. And I'm sitting there going, the work that goes into doing this event.
Yep.
And we're at 150. He's talking 300. He's crazy. And so then we raised 300,000. So then Charlie goes, one day we're going to raise 500,000. And I'm going, this guy's nuts. He has no idea all the work we do to raise 300,000. So then sure enough, a few years down the road, we raised 500. Well, guess what he said when we raised 500?
It was time to put $1 million in the spotlight.
He said, one day we're going to raise $1 million.
Wow.
And then I knew he was crazy and nuts. Before I was just wondering, but at that point I knew he was crazy. And then in 2015, we raised $1 million.
Wow.
We raised 723,000 in 2014. And then in 2015, we raised a little over $1 million.
Wow.
And so 2017 was our biggest year by like maybe $60,000.
Right.
But this year was our second biggest year.
Yeah.
And it certainly is a tribute to Charlie Cantrell, 5-star automotive family, the people that work for him, that work so hard on the tournament, the rescue mission, the volunteer clinic, the FCA. Everybody comes together and makes this great event. The volunteers, the celebrities, advertisers. I don't know if you saw one of our programs, but I think it's 124 pages, which is amazing. It's all the sponsors and advertisers. But you hear a lot of talk about the economy but here we are. Even if, I don't know, times are tough for people. They're tough for a lot of people, but people are still opening their wallets.
They still give.
And helping, because they know no matter how bad it is for you, there's somebody that has a lot worse.
Absolutely.
A lot worse.
Absolutely. That is amazing. And so, I know that pressure stayed on you all those years to always do better, but it's a good pressure, really, because the day after that, that total, that's a high that you can't explain, right?
Right. Right. We have, that night, we pretty much know that night.
Right.
After everybody's gone, and because we know how much we've raised in sponsorships and advertisers and golfers, and then we know we find out that night how much we raised in the call to action. We know what we did in the silent auction, in the live auction. The only thing that we don't know is the next day selling the tea packs, and those are $50 tea packs. A lot of them come with the packages you buy. Some don't. So the most we could raise the next day would be $2,000 or $3,000. So we feel pretty comfortable the night of the auction, about 9:30 that night, as to how much
number.
We've raised. Yeah.
Gotcha. So
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then this year it was 1.2.
About 1.24.
1.24.
Charlie didn't come to you and say, next year we're going to do 2 million, right?
No, ever since we got over $1 million, he hadn't said anything.
He laid off.
He hasn't said anything about $2 million.
He's happy with $1 million every year.
I think so. Honestly, the goal this year was 1.3 million, which would have been the most we have ever raised, and a little bit more than the most we ever raised 2017. But it's like no one's disappointed.
Absolutely.
Of course not.
That you always, if you don't have a goal that's bigger than where you are,
that's right.
Then you're just going to get complacent and not try harder, So me being so competitive, of course I wanted to get there. And anytime Charlie, challenged me to, another level, of course I was going to try to reach that level. And it's, it's a competitiveness in me, but it's also, you raise more money, you help more people, right?
That's right. So during COVID, did it take a year or two off or anything that it was able to, it's been continuous ever since 1989? 89.
We had to adjust things, so it was really interesting. We have this group that comes in from Nashville. When Russell Henley got involved back in 2015, he handed me this piece of paper had someone's name and phone number on it, and he said, call this guy. Somebody gave me his number, said he wanted to, he knows a lot of people, wants to get involved with this event. So I called this guy's name's Nate, and a few years later, so these guys come down on a bus, on a tour bus from Nashville. Some are budding musicians, some are just guys that have become big friends of the tournament. And like this year, we had a new guy come, Ryan Franklin, who was an all-star pitcher. He came for the first time. We had what's that? Chrisley, one of the Chrisley boy was here last year.
Yes.
What's his first name? It's not, I can't think of it.
I know you're talking about though.
I do.
But he was from that Chrisley Knows Best.
Chrisley Knows Best.
Yeah.
That's right.
He came last year. But anyway, this bus comes down from Nashville. There are 8 guys. They stay in the bus on Idlowers campus. They had the best time the whole weekend, and they bring, like, one of the guys is the set carpenter for the Eric Church band, and he's the one that got that lady. Yeah, he got that guitar signed for us. He brings cool things. He brought the Eric Church autographed guitar. Eric Church has a benefit tournament up in Nashville. It's not open to the public, and he gives us a foursome to auction off for the tournament. And so
That's
I
cool.
forget what it brought in this year, but I know last year brought in $3,400.
It was close to that this year.
Was it?
Yeah, because we wanted to go.
Next year, there's always next
There's
year.
always next year.
And then there's another guy that comes with them, and he has some contact for Ted Turner's Nonami Plantation, and we sell golf for $4 to go play. And they don't even, so it's his quail plantation, but in the off season, apparently there's a golf course there.
Oh.
And when people go play golf, they have to bring in golf carts because they don't.
They don't even
They
have
don't
them.
have
Right. So it's a really neat experience because you can't just buy. So one of the celebrities gives us that. And, they just, Nate is involved with Alan Jackson. So he gave us the Alan Jackson 4 tickets. And you had the VIP pit passes, dinner backstage. You could park backstage, just this whole VIP tour and whatnot. And so there are 2 guys on the front row, and they're going at it, bidding against each other. It was so funny. They're sitting this close. And one would go, 2,000, 2,100, 2,200, 2,300. They were just going back and forth. They weren't looking at each other. They were just both. So I saw Nate from across the room. I'm like, it caught his eye, and I went running over there. I said, would you do 2 of these?
So that's what happened because I saw you got out and
Yes. When I saw that thing go boom, 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 and so I ran over to him, and I told him, I said, Nate, this thing's going crazy. Will you do 2? He said, oh, sure. So it got up to 3,600.
Yes.
That's
3,600.
awesome.
Me and Dylan were bidding on it, and we got it all the way up to about 1,600. Then we figured we'd get back on the porch because it got out of hand out there.
So it went for 3,600,
Right.
and so we doubled it. So I mean, so those guys from Nashville are they are true gems and really a huge part of helping us raise money.
Yeah, I got to meet a couple of those guys 2 years before. And actually kind of ended up being friends with them. They're just musicians. And I
Right.
don't say just musicians. What I mean is they are musicians who are donating their time and their energy
Right.
and trying to make it. But it's cool that they want to come down and be a part of
Right.
this thing.
They do.
It's like, oh, I want to do that.
They want to come every year, and they're disappointed when they can't come. So I, went off on my tangent, as y'all can tell by now. I do that. So you were asking about the COVID years. So
Right.
what we did let's see. I know we did it in 20, and we did it in 21 too. I think we went to Capricorn,
Okay.
and the musicians who came, who had been coming for several years, they did. They performed. And so we did this live feed, and we had, we still had did we do the silent auction? I'm trying to think. I know we did a live auction.
You did? Yes.
We did a live, we may not have done the silent auction, but we did a live auction, and we did it through, we had this guy that came and helped us, somebody like you that would know how to do all this stuff. And so the guys they played different songs. They played some of their own songs, played some, probably some covers, some Allman Brothers and Web Willie. I think he did something for us that was pre-recorded, and we showed it that night. And so we did, this jam session that you could just watch on your computer. So we did that 2 years in a row. So COVID, we still raised over $1 million. Now, we might have just done $1 million in 23,000 or something,
Right.
so it was probably a couple of 100,000 less than we did. We were,
But still
accustomed to,
super
like-
successful.
right.
Still super
Right.
successful. Because that's what me doing this one thing that we do here in town. It's called Miracle Treat Day.
Which you're number one in the country, by the
Yeah,
way.
that's
Well,
right, Justin. You're number one in the
I'm
country.
trying.
Number one. Are you listeners hearing that?
Number
We're
one in the country.
Gray. We're in Gray.
Gray, Georgia.
What's the population of Gray?
About 3,500.
3,500 people in Gray, Georgia. And I am sitting with Children's Miracle Network royalty,
Oh my goodness.
the number one in the United States.
Well,
Yep.
thank you. That's it. I have a great time doing it every year. It is awesome. But then, I have that fear of what if this coming up time is not as big? What if we only raise $50,000? Then I get to tell myself, okay, self, if you raise $50,000, it's still a huge success.
It
You're
is.
still, you know, you still would probably be number one still. But you're not doing it for the number one thing. You're doing it for the, you know, for the kids. It's
Right.
purely for the kids.
Right.
And I think people have caught on to it and know that every dime goes to where it's supposed to. And that's how it's gotten as big as it is.
And they want to be a part of that.
Right.
Yep.
And they
Right.
want to be a part of something that's big and helping so many people.
Yep. I always say you want to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Right.
And so, and speaking of being a part of something, so, you know, we've talked about you dedicating your life to different things, but something that I did not know was dedicated to you was the tennis courts at Stratford. Can you, can you kind of tell us Stratford Academy? Can you tell us some history about you and Stratford Academy and how that come along?
Well, I grew up there. I played all 12. I mean, I went there all 12 years and played basketball, high school basketball, played tennis there. And then I started coaching tennis there 21. I don't know what year it was, but this will be my 21st year of coaching. And I hit a milestone this past season of 500 wins. So that was really cool.
Wow.
And the school surprised me
Congrats.
with, thank you, with the whole ceremony. It was really neat. They had video of former players, and then my brother got Martina Navratilova to do a video, and John Smoltz, and actually Martina gave me a shout out at one of the tournaments. I think it might have been the French Open.
Wow.
She gave me a shout out about my 500th win. But that was really neat. Yeah, I've kept in touch with her. She is, you talk about somebody salt of the earth, that's Martina. It really is. But having the courts named for me there was by a family who was, we had a capital campaign. I was actually working there at the time and helped raise money for the courts. And for, you know, the science center and other things that we were doing with the capital campaign. And Ashley Copeland was on the committee, the capital campaign committee, and I got to know her. And then her family gave a donation that was at the level that they got to name the building or facility or whatever that they were giving to, that they designated their money to. And so there was this big, you know, the whole school was there. My family came in, my sister came in from Miami and my brother came in from Atlanta. And then I have a brother here in Macon and my mom was there. And so I just thought they all came because I had helped raise so much money for it, right? You know, for the campaign and near the tennis courts, and they had the name covered up. And so there was this whole ceremony and people speaking and all of that. And all of a sudden they had me up there and Ashley was up there and they pulled the name off. They pulled the tarp off the name and it said Jaime Kaplan Tennis Center. So that's how I found out.
That's amazing.
So
That is a great story, and that's a great way for you to find out, because not many people get to pull one over on you.
That's right. That's right. So they pulled one over on me for sure.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, it's an amazing honor. And sometimes driving through Stratford and I round the corner and I look up there and see my name and it's still just
Gives you chills.
yeah.
I mean, that's good stuff because you know everything that you put into the world and into that school, and that they're honoring that, and it means a lot to you.
It really does. It really does. Stratford is, I mean, it's really been my life. You think about, I went to school there for 12 years, and I've coached tennis there for 20 years, so 32 years.
Right.
Is that right? Am I adding right?
Absolutely.
32 years of my life. That's half my life. I just turned 63, so that's over half my life I have spent involved with Stratford. And, you know, I worked there too. So, but I worked there in that time frame of being tennis coach.
Gotcha.
So that's within those 20 years of coaching tennis there. So,
You had another little honor too a couple of weeks ago at Idlehour Country Club.
yeah.
I want to
yeah.
talk about that just a little bit because that was super cool.
Yeah.
I thought.
It really is, and it's what they've now started calling Idlehour's Wall of Fame. And I walk in that entrance all the time. It's the entrance where if you're going from the golf shop into the main clubhouse, you walk in that way. The men's locker room, and you walk in there. If you take veer to your right, that's the men's locker room. You walk in that way to go to the to the sports bar, and there's a main entrance, but this is really the entrance that most people go in.
Right.
They go through, and up on that wall are 6 men, and there are people who Idlehour deems as having, reached levels in whatever they were doing that they were worthy of being on that wall. And so there's Arnold Bloom and Alfred Sams Sr. and Duck Swan and Russell Henley and Peter Persons and Randy Stevens. The first 5 I mentioned are golfers, and the last one's Randy Stevens, and it's amazing what he's done. Not as much as a player, but as a volunteer, he's served at levels all the way from Macon Tennis Association to the United States Tennis Association to the International Tennis Federation. He's been on a international, I think it was a wheelchair committee. So the president of the club called me back in the spring and said the board had voted and that they were going to put me on that wall. So first female. And
All right.
And I saw your portrait. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is beautiful. And I know
Lee
that was-
McDavid. You can thank Lee McDavid.
Did he do that?
Yes, he did.
Oh, it's beautiful. So,
The Wall of Fame.
and
Yeah.
you deserve to be on the Wall of Fame.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And that night when when they unveiled it, and I never thought of it like this, but Jim said, club's been in existence since 1912, and there's 7 people who have
On the
been
Wall
honored.
of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Ooh wee. That's
Yeah.
12 years.
Right.
And that's Jones County math, but that's Stratford math too. 112. All right, and then and so what? But
Yes.
by 7, we're talking about every 18 years or so they do something for
That's
somebody.
fast.
So I mean, hey, that's
It would have
that's pretty
taken me a
awesome.
lot longer to figure that math out.
Right,
I
I
can tell
ain't
you, I would
on
be
there.
like,
Somebody's listening right now and getting on their calculator and going,
That's
he's
right.
off by 1. He's off.
and I do want to mention that Jamie has one other claim to fame that Justin, I know you know nothing about.
Okay.
Probably, but I know about it. And there are people around Middle Georgia who know about it. So Jamie knows all the words to Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang.
Get out of here. Come on.
And so many times.
You're
so
bringing that next weekend, right?
I'm bringing it. I'm actually going to be at her class reunion.
Okay.
And she's going to sing that. But can you do like a little bit for us on camera here?
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
You know I'm shy.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I said a hip,
You're
hop, a hippy diddy hippy hip hip hop. You don't stop the rockin' till the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Now what you hear is not a test. I'm a rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. How's that?
Look at that. Yeah.
I didn't know you were a rapper too. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
you got plenty of
she's a
talents
rapper.
here.
Yes.
You know, I learned that song in college,
Right.
and they would. So it's kind of funny. So in college, that was a big song.
Yeah.
And everybody did it. You know, you go to the parties and everybody playing that, and they pull people up on stage and they say, okay, now this is what,
Oh, yeah.
this is what we want you to say. And we're going to say something, then you say, going to get a fly girl, going to, whatever.
Right.
They would tell you, so hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. That was the big thing. They would tell
Oh,
people
yeah.
to just sing that and we'll do the other part. And so then I got pulled up on stage and the guys started to tell me, now this is what we want you to sing. I said, I know all the words.
She did.
You were ready.
So then I was
All
ready.
the words.
So then I sang it up on stage, and that was it.
Yep.
So now I, anytime Laura's around and she knows I might be there, she always brings it.
I give her the microphone and let her sing to it.
Children's Hospital Tournament.
Did you actually get to go? You got to go meet the Sugar Hill Gang.
I introduced the Sugar Hill
Oh,
Gang.
even better. Introduce the Sugar
So
Hill
what
Gang.
I did, it was so cool. So I got to meet them
Right.
backstage. It was Cherry Blossom Festival, and Stacey Moore knows that I can sing that song, and so she had me do a little promo that they just put on social media that they were coming, but she let me introduce them.
We talked about 5-star and the classic and the celebrity classic. Are there any other types of philanthropy that you're involved in?
I am actually a couple of other things. I work for the Southern Tennis Foundation,
Okay.
and so I've been doing that since December of 22,
Okay.
and it's the 501c3 arm of the USTA Southern. So just a little lesson in what tennis, the governing body of tennis, is the United States Tennis Association.
Okay.
So that's the governing body, USTA. They run the U.S. Open. And then under that, there are 17 sections. And one of the sections is USTA Southern. And we're actually the largest section. In fact, we have, in terms of number of USTA members, we have about 182,000 USTA members. And then I think we're actually more than the next three combined. So we are a large part of the United States Tennis Association. Now, we are 9 states. We're the 9 southern states, not including Florida,
Right.
which that's not a southern state anyway, is it?
I think it's a mixture. Everybody kind of moves down there when
That's
they're
right.
rich and ready to retire.
Right.
That kind of takes me back to that joke you told me earlier about
yeah.
why did you go to 2 colleges?
So why did I go to Georgia,
Georgia and
then
Florida State? Yeah.
Yeah, so I could hate the Gators twice as much. For all you Georgia fans out there, that's for you.
There we go.
Dedicated to the Georgia fans. Sorry, Florida fans. I know a few. I apologize. But you have to admit it's a good joke.
It is a real
It
good
is
joke.
a good joke.
I told that joke to Danny Werfel last year at John Smoltz's celebrity event.
Right.
He laughed. You have to laugh.
Oh
at it.
yeah, you got to take
Even
it
if
with
you
stride.
are a former
You
Florida,
do. You have
Florida
to
quarterback.
I mean, there are some jokes about Georgia that you kind of have to laugh about, and then there's some jokes about Alabama that you definitely have to
Absolutely.
laugh about.
So with the Southern Tennis Foundation, it does some what charity, like what does it do? What is
so
it's a body for?
We promote tennis, and they say tennis is the healthiest sport.
Right.
So, I love being a part of promoting the game that's given back so much to me. So, to be able to work for the Southern Tennis Foundation and help people, help kids, we have an NJTL, it's National Junior Tennis and Learning. Arthur Ashe and a couple of other gentlemen started it back in the late 60s, early 70s. For golfers out there who've ever heard of First Tee, the NJTL is the equivalent, is the tennis equivalent of First Tee. So it's an after-school program. Kids learn tennis. They also have tutoring and do a number of other activities. So just a great program. We have tennis for wheelchair tennis,
Wheelchair tennis, yeah.
athletes. We have tennis for blind and low vision athletes. In fact, we did a program at the Georgia Academy for the Blind here, and we had about 20 volunteers and tennis coaches come in and learn how to teach blind and low vision players.
Wow.
And so we had a workshop in the afternoon and the next morning, and then the kids came in, and it was amazing.
I bet it was.
Really,
I bet it was
really
a good time.
cool.
Absolutely.
There is. And there's some high level of tennis play, and sorry, I don't remember exactly, but I think there's 4 divisions, maybe 5 of the level of blindness.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes from just some low vision all the way to blind, and you compete at those levels. The ball has a bell in it, so so it rings when it's bouncing. You get 2 bounces. You have to have someone out there to help you, because obviously once the ball stops moving, it doesn't make noise anymore.
Right.
So you have to have a minimum of one, preferably two people on the court to help with play. But it's amazing. If you Google blind low vision tennis, it's amazing what you'll see.
It is.
It
I mean,
really is.
I never even heard of
It
that.
really is. And then
Is it smaller courts and stuff, or
it is played on a. It depends on the
Okay.
level of blindness, but I think that the low vision plays on a regular court. Okay. But what we did is we played in the gym, because ideally indoors, I think, is the best where to play, because you can hear the best and there's no wind. Because you can imagine if the wind's blowing that ball around,
Yeah.
it'd really be hard to play. But the line, so you take some rope, thin rope, and tape it down onto the ground.
And they can feel
and they
that
can feel with
on
your
their
feet
shoe.
where the lines are for the court.
Isn't that
So
amazing?
It was really neat, and it's.
wow?
I have some video of that I can.
I definitely, if we can
send
get
to
some of
you.
that video,
It's
I'd definitely
really-
like to show
it was
our
really
viewers.
neat. We had that here. We also for autistic athletes. In fact, here in Macon Tennis Association does something, and I love this name. It's called Net Therapy, and they do tennis for autistic kids, and they've done some other programs. It's amazing. It really is. It's called Net Therapy. They also do tennis for veterans, and they'll potentially get into wheelchair tennis, but we're doing all that right here in Macon. We also help kids like junior players. It's expensive, as you can well imagine. Let's say you're a low-income house that has a kid that's a really good player, and costs a lot for lessons and for travel and equipment. And so we have a program at the Southern Tennis Foundation that junior players can apply for reimbursement for expenses up to a certain dollar amount. I think it's up to $5,000. And so we just have a lot of programs at the Southern Tennis Foundation that are helping kids and adults. We also have tennis scholarships, and their endowments. We're up to about 24, 25, and they're $30,000 endowments that to create a scholarship in someone's name, either in memory of someone or in honor of somebody, and a rising freshman. So we have I think the deadline to apply for it's maybe the end of March, and it's for the class that's coming in that year, be a freshman in college, and they can apply for the scholarship, and they get $1,000 a year for 4 years as long as they maintain a B average, and the household income has to be $100,000 or below. They have 2 kids in college, $125,000 or below. Don't have to play college tennis to get the award, and it's just it's a neat thing. We give away. We're at that point where we give away 40 a year.
That's amazing. That's
$40,000. We have 40 people, because the way it builds up, the first year you have 10,
Right.
second year you have 20, third year you have 30, fourth year you have 40. And so, I was saying earlier, I have 24. Well, we have 24 named scholarships, but the other 16 that we give out. So we give out 40. It's just that only 24 of them have names, and they're staggered.
Right.
So one year if someone gets the, for instance, there's a John Callan scholarship. So you get that John Callan scholarship for 4 years. Then that 5th year, a new person gets that John Callan scholarship for 4 years.
That's neat.
Yeah, so it's
Stays with
staggered
them.
like that. And but we pay for 40 a year, whether there's an endowment or not.
Right. And for for our listeners, this is southerntennisfoundation.com you can go to, and it's got
.org. Sorry, .org.
.org as well.
Yeah.
.org as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
we just switched to .org.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh,
Southern-
.org is a very, very fancy website.
Oh, so if you saw the .com,
Don't go to .com, go to .org,
well,
y'all.
if you want to see something that I had my marketing committee and the chair of the marketing committee, Drew Michaels. I'm going to give her a big old shout out, Because if you want to see a transformation, I didn't even know you could get to the .com.
Yeah, it's still there,
It's
but that .org is another ball game.
Yeah, the .com is supposed to
Go away.
redirect.
Right.
Yeah. So I would like for all of our listeners to go to the .com and go to the .org and see what. There were several people who worked on it, obviously, but
Right.
And we had a company that we did it with, but Drew Michaels and I swear she told me she's having withdrawals because we would talk like for 4 hours a day, you know,
Wow.
for probably about 6 months working on this website. And so the .com is supposed to be redirecting. I
Right.
will be calling our IT director.
I hear
when it
you.
gets
Well,
back.
I mean, that is one of the fanciest websites I've ever
Isn't
seen.
it
Right when you
nice?
hit it. I mean, there goes the
Isn't-
videos playing of all kind of stuff.
Isn't it nice?
That's nice.
Yeah, southerntennisfoundation.org.
Very cool.
And so, yeah, that's funny that you saw the .com. Yeah, it's kind of like I tell people, and no offense to anybody who drives a Pinto, but it's like going from a Pinto to a Rolls Royce, those
Right.
two websites.
Yeah. I've just experienced that for myself.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that out loud. He's probably sitting there going,
Yeah.
boy, does she work for some operation.
I got a feeling by the time our listeners are listening to this, that will be changed and it
That'll-
will be
yeah, they
redirected.
won't be able to see it.
Although I kind of like the .com being out
Yeah.
there so people can see. No, but I need to get in touch with our IT guy when we're done. But
Gotcha.
thank you for doing that because that let me know that that's
Oh, yeah.
still there.
So, one thing when I went to kind of, I tried to find out a lot about who we're interviewing before they get here. I don't want to find out everything, but I try to find out a lot. And so I've been seeing a lot of pictures on social media with you with these shirts on. Merry Christmas or Merrier Christmas?
The Merry Christmas
Merry
Project.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's MERRIE.
MERRIE. So I'll try not to get too emotional talking.
It's okay.
Yeah, but-
It's all,
There's
it's all
Laura.
right. Let it roll.
It's
So-
all right.
My brother Mike and his wife Nancy had a special needs daughter named Mary, MERRIE.
Okay.
So that's where that
That's
comes
where
from.
that come from.
Right.
Okay.
And she had Williams syndrome and affects a lot of things, but big thing it affects is the heart. So she died of a sudden heart attack in August of 2019. And Mary was just one of the most gregarious people you'll ever meet. And we would joke that she would go into a restaurant and everybody would come, hey, Mary, how you doing? And go to the club and sit up at the bar, at the sports bar, and everybody would converge around Mary. So we always joked that she was holding court.
Oh, yeah.
She was just one of those people, never met a stranger, and she was special.
A very a delightful person,
so you knew
always.
Mary. Oh, yeah, always. And it's like, my brother says she, when she loved to, when you were happy, she was happy with you. And when you were sad, she was sad with you. And she loved very deeply and she hurt very deeply. And so she was special. And she passed away, like I said, in August of 19. And my brother was driving down the road. I think he was going out to the cemetery. She's buried in Jeffersonville. And he was driving down the road and he said, this can't be the end. She can't just die and this be the end.
Right.
And Mary loved Christmas. In fact, she kind of still believed in Santa Claus. And so it was so neat. Her 40th birthday party, Santa Claus came.
There we
And it was
go.
the coolest thing because he had an earpiece in, and Mary's mom, Nancy, was off to the side, and Mary didn't know it, and she was feeding, so Nancy could hear what Santa was saying to Mary and what Mary was answering with, and so Nancy was telling Santa what to say to Mary. And she was just shocked at the things that he knew about her.
That's fun.
And that how he would say, well, I don't know an example, but he would just say, well, I know you've got that on your mantle at home. And,
Right.
or just something like that. And so it was really cute. But,
That is awesome.
Mike, he said, this can't be the end. And so he said, call me up. And he said, I want to do something. And I want to help people at Christmas because Mary loved
Loved
Christmas.
and
I mean, she just lived for Christmas. And so Mike and I were talking and brainstorming, and he just wanted to raise a little money and help a few people at Christmas, with some decorations and wrapping paper and maybe some gifts, a tree. And we started raising money, and we raised $100,000 like
Wow.
that. Sorry to know.
Oh, that's good.
In your ear.
Nah, I'm good.
So this will be the 6th year that we've done it. And what we do is we identify families through some different organizations. We work with Taryn Collinsworth at Communities and Schools, and Betsy Fitzgerald with Big Brothers Big Sisters, June O'Neill with the Mentors Project.
What a wonderful lady she is.
Oh, yeah. With Make an Aim. And they have a new director coming in soon. But Patty Gibbs is involved with that, and Allison from the Methodist Home. And we work with the RISE program. Anita Howard's our district attorney, her RISE program. And I didn't write down the numbers, but I'm going to tell you, I think in 5 years, have helped over 3,600 kids.
Wow.
What we do, Justin, is we identify these families, and they come to Walmart, and they shop themselves. We give them money to shop with. And if it's let's say it's a single mom of 4, they get $500 to go shopping. We also work with Walthall, that has, I think, 3 or 5, no 3, maybe 4, I think 4 gas stations in Macon. And everybody gets a $25 gas card. And if they don't have a card, they can get a $25 Uber card, or they can get a bus, a 31-day bus pass. Right. And so we like I said, we identify the families through these organizations. They give us a list of how many people are coming. We have different shopping times, and they come. Some know what they're about to get, and we tell them how much money they get, and they go shopping. Others have no idea what's about to happen, and we'll, have a mom come, and sometimes they bring their kids, sometimes they don't. A lot of them the shopping times are during the day, and it's really neat because they can shop for their kids. Their kids have, they go home and they hide everything and can surprise their kids on Christmas
I
Day.
love the way this program works. I really, really do, because I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of things on Facebook and social media, and I love the fact that these families or these moms get to shop for themselves.
Right. And Mike tells every mom.
That's such a special thing.
Mike tells every mom because it's important to my brother to talk to every single, because he's there every minute that all this is going on. And it's important to him. He loves to explain, he loves to talk about Mary, tell a little bit about Mary,
Right.
And why we're doing this. We have this sheet that we tell a teeny bit about her and kind of the rules of what, you can and can't buy. It's not very limited what you can buy, but what we don't want people coming in, you get $500, you go buy a $500 big screen TV.
Right.
Can't do that. If and so big screen TVs are off limits, but we've had moms before come to us and say, my child's autistic, really doesn't leave the room. Could I spend $150 on a big screen?
Right.
We're like, sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But Mike loves to talk to them, take pictures with everybody. He loves to post it on Facebook and send them to Nancy. Mike's wife, Nancy, she's came for last year for the first time. It's really hard for her.
I'm sure it is hard for
every
her.
day is hard.
Imagine.
Every day is hard for all of us, but for those two in particular. And so Nancy came out there for the first time, came to Walmart for the first time last year. Walmart's been amazing. They dedicate to, now mind you, we spend $80,000 to $100,000 there, but they've been great as far as dedicating checkout lines to us. So when they go shopping, they know, come back to register 33 and 34, you know, whatever.
Right.
So they, in Archie, we moved to Zebulon Road this year. He was, you know, just amazing. So they've been a great partner with us. But, you know, through the years, one year this mom bought a little mattress that goes in a crib. And thank you for helping my chemo brain, by the way. It's amazing.
Anytime.
There is really something to that. It didn't happen to me when I had leukemia and had that chemo, but it's happened to me now, maybe because I'm older. So instead of blaming it on age, now, you know, I can blame it on chemo, but there are some basic words that I just can't come up with. And
You've impressed me. I mean, sitting here, you've been calling out people's names, all those people that were on the Wall of Fame earlier. You named off all them. I'm like, there's no way I could name all the people that helped me on Miracle Treat Day. No way right now. But you named it right off, so I'm impressed.
Thanks. But going back to, you know, the crib this woman bought, she was buying a mattress for the crib. And Mike talks to everybody that comes through check out, and she said she was thanking him, and she said, my babies have been sleeping on cardboard.
Oh,
Cardboard. The very first year we did this, I was helping this woman unload her cart. And down below, she had one of those huge things of toilet paper.
Right.
I picked it up and I put it on the conveyor belt. And she said, I was thanking God the whole way over here when I got the phone call this morning to come here today. I was thanking God the whole way over here. I'm a single mom of 7 kids, and we ran out of toilet paper yesterday. Oh. And I didn't know what I was going to do for toilet paper. And I thought, you know, you think about, have you ever run out of toilet paper?
Never.
And if you have, it's, you know, oh my gosh, I ran out of toilet paper. Well, what do? Well, then, you know, you get in your car
and go get some.
Right.
But they can't.
Right. It's like so many things that we take for granted in our lives, and everything is relative. I mean, you know, some people say, I hate that term. But everything is relative.
It is. Perspective.
You know, even my cancer, it's relative. I got diagnosed in December, and here it is, you know, I'm still here in October.
Right.
I know someone who was diagnosed earlier this year. He died in a week. I know somebody else who died less than 2 months ago. He found out and he died in 2 weeks.
And this is your second bout with cancer.
Second go round.
Wow.
The leukemia.
Unrelated.
When were you diagnosed with the leukemia?
In April of 2010.
Okay.
And went to Emory and went through the chemo. The first chemo I had was 24 hours a day for 7 days. I was hooked up to this, you know, pole everywhere I went. I had to take my pole with me.
Wow.
And I'm not really claustrophobic, but so claustrophobic might not be the term for it, but I was hooked up to this thing, and it just, first day I was okay, and about the third or fourth day, I guess, I just curled up in a ball. I went in this black hole. And it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't that I wasn't feeling sorry for myself because I had cancer, because again, you know, you think about when we talked earlier about when I said I was going to be a tennis pro.
Right.
Well, okay, you have leukemia. These are the things you have to do to get cured. Okay, well, we're going to do that. So it wasn't that, and I'm not saying that I knew that I was going to survive that cancer, but I knew I was going to do everything I could, like I did to become a professional tennis player. I was going to do everything that I could to try to be cured. Of course, the rest is left up to God, as being a tennis pro was, you know?
That's right.
So I don't know. That claustrophobic that I went into, like curled up in a ball. If you asked me what I did for those 48 hours, I would tell you I was curled up in a ball and the lights were out, the TV was off, and I didn't say a word. Nobody spoke to me. Now, that's not what happened, but that's how I remember it. And I'll never forget my cell phone rang. And my mom says, I'll answer that for you. And I went, nah, I get it. And I answered the phone, and it was this woman who had gotten my phone number and wanted to know if I could teach her daughter tennis lessons. And, I told her I couldn't, but then I popped up in bed and I started telling her the people to call, and I'm looking on my phone and giving the phone numbers that I don't have in memory.
Right.
Of the people that she could call to get tennis lessons for her daughter. And that's what snapped me out of it.
Because you have an inherent need and want to help people,
Yeah.
even when you're maybe at your lowest. If there's something you can do
Yeah.
to help somebody else, even if it's just, let me give you this phone number and connect you to somebody who can
And I didn't
help.
realize it at the time, but yeah. And after that, I was fine.
You broke right out of it. And,
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was done. I was fine.
And how long was that, the treatment process and the battle with leukemia? How long did that go on?
So I started chemo in May, and then I had my bone marrow transplant August 27th.
Which is your second birthday.
That's my second, yeah.
That's what you always
So
say.
every year, it's
Yeah, she gets 2 birthdays.
that's right. I turned 14 August 22nd.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
27th. Hey, kitty.
Kitty, kitty.
And cat trying. That must be.
Cat
You want to
trying
be on
to
TV?
He's trying to be famous.
You want to be a movie star?
You know I'm a cat person. I love
Me
kitties.
too. I love cats. So I had the bone marrow transplant in August, and then I was working at Stratford full time at the time, of course, coaching tennis. I was doing that from afar. Kids are germ incubators, and so I had to be so careful afterwards. So my doctor didn't.
Kids have cooties.
Yeah,
That's just the way it is. They have cooties,
They do
okay?
have cooties, and I hadn't had a cootie shot since 4th grade. So
Yeah, they can't help it, but kids have cooties.
So, and cootie shots hurt.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, the circle,
do.
circle, and the dot, dot. It'll get you every time.
So, I went back to work, and once school was out, they let me go back to work. So I went back to work in like June
Okay.
of the next year. And so, that was
And that was
First
it.
out.
And
The process of finding a bone marrow donor, though.
yeah. That was interesting. Yeah. So they first tested my siblings, and they're looking for a 6 out of 10 or better. They're, to not get too technical, there are these certain things that they're looking for in the chromosomes and the genetic, just
Right.
whatever. And so a 10 out of 10 is a perfect match. And that is your best chance of having a good match.
right.
And so I was 5 out of 10 with 2 of my siblings and 0 out of 10 with my other sibling. And so then they go into the registry, and sometimes they don't find anybody in the registry. But I had about 10 or 12 perfect matches in the registry, which was amazing.
Wow.
But this one person that they chose, his name is Damien, and he was actually in medical school, and he was on vacation with his girlfriend in Turkey when he got the phone call that he was a match. And could he do it? And so when he got home from his vacation and he went, they tested him again, because I think then they drilled down deeper after they, just in that. The first thing is just a swab.
Right.
So then they take your blood and they drill down deeper to other things. And so they said he would be a great match for me. And so they literally drilled into his
Butt bone.
Sacrum.
Okay. Gotcha.
and they get bone marrow. And that's what a bone marrow transplant is. Transplant sounds like it's some sort of surgery, but it's just a big bag of blood, looks like blood.
Right.
And so that's what my transplant was, is that, so what they do is the treatment for leukemia is they literally, the chemo destroys it. It destroys your bone marrow, and then it regenerates. And the hope is when it regenerates, there's no leukemia cells.
Gotcha.
And so what they do before they did that at the beginning, and then right before the transplant, they kill all the bone marrow, and then they give you the transplant. Okay. So they're just transplanting his bone marrow to my bone marrow. And so, very fortunate with that. I mean, there's some people that die a few days later because they reject it and they die, or, it doesn't take, and they have to go back and get another one, or there's something called graft versus host disease, where your cells fight
with the others.
Yeah, basically what it is. I was very fortunate. My graft versus host is just a kind of a skin disease, just my torso. I got all these. I woke up one morning, like my transplant was in August. This was like February or March. Woke up one morning and looked in the mirror, and I had these splotches all over me. And that was my graft versus host. I met people who got it in their eyes. This one girl, she was wearing sunglasses indoors. Wow. And I was like, why do you have to wear sunglasses indoors? She goes, I've got graft versus host in my eyes, and so it's bright in here. And it was just normal light in a doctor's office.
Wow.
So sometimes that graft versus host is fatal.
So you had the bone marrow transplant. You actually met your donor.
I did.
And
so.
I remember all that on social media. I mean, because I was following along with that, and it was so cool.
So here's what happened. A year after your transplant, you fill out paperwork if you want to meet your donor. And then your donor does the same if they want to meet the person that they donated cells to. And so I did that. Let's see, it was August, probably filled out a year later, my August appointment a year later. And I didn't hear anything. And my 40th birthday rolled around, and I was having a party at Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. And I was convinced that my family had heard from my donor somehow, and that he or she, I didn't know at the time. Right. No, I did know. I knew it was a male in his 20s from out of the country. Wow. Now the country ended up being Canada.
Gotcha.
So, but that's all they'll tell you. So if I'd never met him, that's all I would have ever known about Damien. So I was convinced that he
was going to show up at this party.
Show up at my 40th birthday party. Well, he didn't. So I just had settled into, because this was like, now it's 2 months later. He just didn't want to meet. This is just a good person who wanted to help save someone's life. So I was working on, back then the 5-star tournament was either in October or November. Might have been in November.
I think November.
Yeah. And I was working on the tournament. It was right before the auction. So it's that time in between the clay shoot starts, and I go home to do some final things on the auction for that night. And my phone rang, and I looked at it. It was a number that was not my phone. Well, having so many people coming to this tournament, I'm like, okay, well, I bet, even though I'm busy, I better answer it because it might be somebody with the tournament. Right. So it said hello, and this person goes, hello, and I went, hello. He said, hello, and I said, hey. And he goes, hey, this is Damien. And I said, hey, Damien. And he goes, kind of in that same breath, he said, how did he word it? Because he said something about, I related to you through you're transplanted in Emory or something like that. And I'm sitting there thinking about all the people I met when I was in the hospital and at the Hope Lodge and all that. And I didn't meet anybody named Damien. But it was the way he worded it that it made it sound like he was at Emory. He said something like, I was at Emory when you were at Emory or something like that.
Right.
And so...
We're related by blood.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So then he finally goes, you don't know who this is? And I said, no. And he said, I'm your donor.
Wow.
Well...
You lose it?
Yeah.
You just lost it, didn't you?
I did. I could not talk any longer, and thank goodness somebody else was in the room with me that could talk to him, because I was done. I couldn't. So anyway, after I gathered myself and I could speak, in fact, I think it was 2 days later when I talked to him, because it was just a lot to take in, and I had this huge event, coming up. So, because this was 2011. And we started talking about, well, we want to meet. He said, well, I'm in medical school and I don't get much time off. He said, and I've already scheduled a vacation for this Christmas. I'm going to Miami. And I said, I'm going to Miami this Christmas. And he said, no way. I said, where are you staying? And he told me where he was staying, and it was a mile from where I was staying.
Get out.
A mile. Now, how big is Miami?
Exactly.
You can go from North Miami down to Coral Gables, right?
Right.
A mile away. And so we planned this big thing. His whole family was going to be there. And so my family went. My brother Mike went. Nancy couldn't go, but she got on. What, you didn't do Zoom back then? What was it?
Oh, it was
Oh gosh, what was it?
that was the first video, not Twitch, maybe? No, not Twitch.
God, I'll think of it.
Yep.
But anyway, we got her on there, and of course, Mom was there, and and it was the neatest thing, just to, for our families to meet, and one of the TV stations down in Miami covered it, and the Miami Herald covered it. They wrote a story, so it was neat. I think it was the NBC affiliate down
That
there.
is cool.
Covered it, so they showed it up in Macon.
So do you still keep in touch with him?
I do.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And his family, it was pretty bizarre. His parents, who were, I call them Mom and Dad. But they're both like 2 years younger than me. But a couple of times I've been on a flight. It's been a while since this has happened, but I'll be waiting to, sitting there waiting in the airport or on the plane for them to tell you to turn your phone off, and scrolling through Facebook, and I'll see one of them says they're on an airplane, because they love to say where they're headed next.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And they're headed to New York, and I was going to New York too, and so I would text them or email them and say, hey, going to be in New York, and we'd have lunch, and so on 2 occasions we were going to the same city at the exact same time.
That's amazing.
So it's really bizarre. So I keep in touch with Damien more than I do his parents, but it's, like on Facebook,
Right.
Commenting on their posts or them on mine, or sending them messages or whatever. But Damien, we text every few months.
And I'm assuming that he graduated med school.
He did.
And what kind of doctor is he?
He is, I think he's more of a general doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's up in Canada, and he's married and has one child, I think. Pretty sure it's just one child. She's beautiful. And it's just really neat. It's a beautiful relationship that we have, and it was just neat to meet.
Yeah.
Someone that saved your life, right? I mean,
That is awesome.
Literally.
right.
And
then it was important to me when all this happened with me being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, to get genetic testing for a number of reasons. But one reason was to see if it did come from him, or potentially. We wouldn't have known.
Right.
If it had been genetic, it could have come from him. And it was important for me to
be able to
let
share
him
that
know.
with him.
Right. But it wasn't genetic. Neither one of my cancers was genetic.
So when were you diagnosed with pancreatic cancer?
December 5th.
Last year?
December 5th of last year. I have to get this chest CT once a year for something else I have. And I went to get that. I'd been getting them. That would have been my fourth one. Going to be fine, right?
Right.
So I go and get it, and I went home and on my computer working, and it was about 30 minutes after I'd gone. I went to Georgia Cancer Specialist downtown because that's where I went when I had leukemia. And so that's where I was going it had nothing to do with cancer, this chest CT I was getting. They had the machine there, and so that's where I went to get it done. And I'd been home about 15, 30 minutes, and the nurse practitioner from there, phone rang. I looked at Georgia Cancer Specialist. I'm like, why are they calling me? I answered it, and she said, you need to come back down here immediately. And so the chest CT, the tech had gone down low enough to catch the top of my pancreas, and there was a big old tumor. And so December 11th is when they did the biopsy. They knew what it was, but they had to be sure. I mean, for a while there, we were hoping my leukemia was back. I had a real rare form of leukemia. I had tumors outside the bone so it was never in my bone marrow.
Right.
It was called extramedullary. So I had 3 tumors, and 2 of them weren't causing any pain, but one of them was in the area they call it it's called the neuroforamina area. And I was having what I thought was sciatic pain, and this tumor was wrapped around a nerve in the neuroforamina area and was causing this nerve pain. So I started out with the orthopedic doctor. I went to Bill Barnes, and he's scratching his head because he's like, your back looks fine. Everything's fine. I don't know. And he stayed on it. He was relentless trying to help me figure out what it was. And the new tumor I had, my leukemia doctor, who's now a very dear friend of mine, and I was talking, obviously in close contact with her about this whole thing. She was actually, if this isn't a kick in the pants, they were hoping it was leukemia rather than pancreatic.
Right, the pancreatic.
Right. They were hoping my leukemia had come back in the form of a tumor that happened to be on my pancreas. So it wasn't. It tested positive for, it was an adenocarcinoma. And because of the location of it, it is inoperable. There are 3 blood vessels in that area. I may be getting this wrong, but sorry, advanced biology teacher, if I get this wrong. They're going to the spleen, the pancreas, and let's go with stomach. How about that? And so there are 3 main blood vessels. They're right there. And this tumor is intertwined and has encapsulated that area. So even the doctor in Atlanta who went in, they went in endoscopically to get the biopsy. He said that he had to be very careful to get a piece of the tumor as to not touch, because if he punctured one of those blood vessels, I could have bled out.
Right.
So that's how sensitive that area is where the tumor is. And so that's why it's inoperable. Listeners out there have probably heard of the Whipple procedure.
Yes.
And so that is a procedure that they can do when the tumor is in a different place than where mine is. So I think mine.
But the Whipple is not it's not an option for you.
Correct. Now I did go see a doctor, and I don't even want to identify where he is, but I did go see a surgeon that I wanted to go see about something that someone had sent me an article about intraoperative radiation therapy. And I thought, well, cool. They go in and maybe they put radiation directly on the tumor. I want to go see about this. And when I went to the doctor, he came walking in the room. He goes, I can operate on this. And it's called a modified Appleby.
Huh.
You would not believe what they would. I don't know. I wouldn't have had any quality of life if I'd even made it off the operating table. I saw 3 other surgeons that, and not that I was looking for a surgeon to tell me that they could operate on me, because, I thought about it. It was like on the table, let's talk about it. But I mean, they would have removed my celiac complex, my pancreas, potentially my stomach, my spleen, just what kind of quality of life would I've had after that. And so a couple of other surgeons or one surgeon I saw after that when I went up to Sloan Kettering, he said, Jamie, there's a double-digit chance you wouldn't even make it out of the hospital. He said, and then, you just would not have much of a quality of life. And so I want to be like I am right now and able to do, the things that I'm doing and helping the people I'm able to help. Because, how frustrating would that be for me if I did have that surgery and I just was relegated to sitting in a chair all day or laying on a bed all day? I don't know.
That wouldn't be good for you. That's not you. That's not who you are.
And we do want to let everybody know you have undergone some different treatments.
Right.
A treatment that in New York that was actually pretty.
It's pretty new. Yeah, it's pretty new. It's pretty.
Yeah. So
I don't want to say it's radical. It's because it could be. What is it? Like breakthrough.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be
It could
something
be a big
that
breakthrough in treatment for inoperable pancreatic cancer or other cancers. I guess they probably do it on, but I did the standard of care, 12 rounds of chemo. And I did that here. I had my first couple at Emory. I had a really bad reaction to the first one. In fact, with the pain and the nausea I was experiencing, and I have a very high pain threshold, I ended up in the hospital overnight. I did the second one at Emory, and then I was like, they're giving me the same stuff that I can get here in Macon, and I live, 8 minutes from where I'd be getting the my infusions. So then I got the next 10 here in town. And then it came time to talk about radiation, and the typical radiation's 25 to 30 treatments. So it's 5 days a week. What they told me it'd be 5 days a week for 6 weeks. But what they do is they wait for you to recover. That chemo that was some tough stuff. I lost 14 pounds. I put a little bit of it back on. Just loss of appetite and just a lot of nausea and lots of side effects from it. But that's what chemo does. It kills the bad cells, but it also kills the good cells.
good ones too.
So someone told me about Memorial Sloan Kettering. Go up there and see there's this Dr. O'Reilly up there, and she's considered one of the top pancreatic cancer doctors in the world. So I was very fortunate to get an appointment with her. She's real hard to get an appointment with. It was interesting. I was at Emory, and I was talking to my doctor there, who's chair of the gastro-oncology department. And I said I was going to see Dr. O'Reilly, and he said, oh, she's considered one of the best in the world. So here's one of the top pancreatic doctors, cancer doctors in our area, and he's talking about how great this doctor is. So I was very blessed to be able to get in with her. So they set an appointment for me with her, with the surgeon, even though I didn't really need to see another surgeon because I knew I wasn't going to have surgery, and then the radiation oncologist. And, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, he can tell me what he wants to tell me, but I'm going to get my radiation in Macon. Because, again, it's, kind of standard of care, what they do for you, what they do. I was going to have Emory write the prescription or whatever and work closely with the people in Macon. So I go to Dr. O'Reilly, and she tells me the same thing that I was hearing down here. I go to the surgeon next, And she said, but I want you to talk to Dr. Crane about radiation. I was like, okay. So then I go to see the surgeon next, and he reiterates what I already knew, that it's operable, but define operable, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
So basically it's inoperable. And he's the one that told me the statistics about, my chances of survival and what it would be like. And then the next day, I saw the radiation oncologist, and he told me about this new technology they were doing, high dose radiation and MRI guided. And he explained it. They take a mold over your body, just the underneath and, my head and all that. And he said, we'll do 5 days of radiation, and we'll give you the equivalent of those 30 days in 5 days. And he said, and we have seen very good results with this. And so came home, had to fly back up there to get the body mold done. And it's really like, when I say mold, it's about a couple inches thick. And the reason you have it, and thank goodness I got to put my arms by my side, because a few times I've had some scans with this going on, and they made me put my arms above my head, and my shoulders start killing me after about 5 minutes. Ugh. And I knew I was going to be in that thing for about an hour and 45 minutes. But the first thing they said, so I get in there and kind of have my arms like this, and the first thing they said, put your arms by your side. I was like, oh my God, can I kiss every single one of you in this room?
That would have been tough.
So they did the mold of my body, sent me home, and then they set the appointment to go back up there. And so the reason for the mold is you have to stay completely still. And the way they explained it to me is that, your organs are in the same place, obviously, every day. But there's a slight shift depending on if you're hydrated, dehydrated, if your bowel's full, not full, number of factors can be just the teeniest shift. And so with this high dose radiation, they want it to be exactly pinpoint. And the location of it that has been unfavorable the whole time was actually, it was in a perfect spot to be a candidate for this radiation, because if it had been next to the bowel, they couldn't have done it, because there would have been too much of a chance that they could have gotten some of the radiation. Yeah. And so because of where it was located, there was nothing else that could be affected by it. And so I did 5 days. They said, when they told me that it was 5 days, and I said, is it in a row? And they said, well, sometimes we split it up for the older people. And I said, am I one of the older people?
Where am I at in this?
Yeah, I'm not an older person.
And they said, we can, if the machine's available, you can do 5 days in a row. Come here, kitty. Not going to jump up, huh? So they called and they said, okay, you're doing Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, which turned out to be a great schedule, because I got did the first one, had a day to kind of take things in. And then I knew you get through Thursday and Friday, you've got the weekend to get ready for Monday and Tuesday. But I got to tell you, it's the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, I hate to say that, like the bone marrow transplant and chemo I did and all those things were a walk in the park, but it was, it won the MRI machine. I have a lot of people go, oh yeah, I hate those MRIs. They're noisy. You gotta lay still or whatever. The worst part was so laying down, and then they get me snuggled into this body mold. I mean, to the point where when they did the mold, they put headphones on me.
Yeah.
And so the mold had my head with the headphones. So they didn't want me moving my head.
Right.
I don't know what that has to do with my stomach, but anyway, my midsection. So there was this belt. It was very heavy, so they did one side around me and the other side around me, and it was pretty tight. It's like, God, that's kind of tight. So then they put me back into the machine. They go in the other room, and they said, okay, Miss Kaplan, we're going to inflate the belt. And they had inflated it. I knew what it was going to feel like, because they had inflated it when they were doing the molding, and I think they were testing how tight, because I remember them saying how many 25 or 30 psi's or whatever it was, because they had to test how tight I could stand. But in my head, I didn't know that I was going to have that like the entire time.
Right.
So they inflated this belt, and when I thought they had inflated it all they could inflate it, they inflated
did
it
it some
more.
Ooh.
And I compare it to, honestly, it's like having a blood pressure cuff around your midsection for an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh,
Ooh.
So they did their MRI for about an hour and 25 minutes. And then they said, okay, we're going to administer the radiation. And so for the next 20, 25 minutes, I could hear the sound. And I sometimes I call my mom. She'll answer the phone. And I go, hey, mama. I just call her mama. That's not, call her mom and whatnot. But when I talk to her on the phone, I'll just go, hey, mama. Well, this machine, it made a noise when they were doing the radiation. And it went, ma, 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 ma. That's what it did the whole time. Mm. And so I went there. But, my mom was right there with me,
Absolutely.
as she always does. She has been for my 63 years.
Wow.
and this
That helped
was
me get through it.
was this July, August?
This was July.
Because I thought you went in July.
Yeah.
And what did they say about it?
So I go back. He said that the radiation keeps delivering for 3 or 4 months.
Oh,
Wow.
So I guess I glow in the dark, huh?
Yes.
I haven't tested it yet.
Yeah. So it's still working right now.
It's still supposedly still working. I go back in December. That's when he wants to see me. I'll see him and Dr. O'Reilly again. My what I call cancer number, it's a CA 19-9. So it's a cancer marker indicator. It's not something that they use, just like it's not foolproof. This is the number we go by, but normal is 0 to 34. And mine got up to almost 3,000.
Ooh.
And the last time they tested me, I think September 18th, maybe, it was 174.
I mean,
Well,
that's a tremendous success.
Yeah.
yeah. A major
Wow.
improvement.
All right.
Yeah.
So 174, that's those are kind of numbers that people that don't even have any kind of cancer in their body could have that kind of
Yeah,
level,
I'm
right?
not sure because like I said, the normal
Normal.
0 to 34, but I don't know if there are
Right.
people who, like you said, don't even have cancer and theirs is 60.
And
Or
if that radiation's still working, I mean, that
Right.
number could be even lower now, right?
yeah. Now, let's temper all this positive stuff with pancreatic cancer has like a 90% chance of recurrence. So even if they get rid of it all right now, that's why it's such a deadly disease. First of all, because it's a silent disease. I told you that I know someone who died a week after he found out, and someone else died 2 weeks after he found out. The one person who died 2 weeks after he found out, he thought he was having gallbladder problems. They went in to take out his gallbladder, and they got in there, and they came right out. Said, you've got pancreatic cancer, and he died 2 weeks later. Wow. So it's a very silent killer. With me, they said mine was probably growing for at least a year. I was having some back pain and went to the orthopedic doctor, and, they just, everybody's scratching their head, what's going on? Then I started having some really bad stomach, rib cage, and back pain. And that was in probably September, and still trying to figure out what was going on. And I had pancreatic cancer. That's what was causing it. But it's just so deadly because has such a high recurrence rate. So, getting that number down, let's say everything's clear, it's a time bomb.
It's just something you'll live with
Right.
from here out.
Yep. And, the hope is that, who knows, they may find a cure.
Yeah.
Might find a cure the longer you live. I mean, it's like when I was talking about leukemia earlier with the 10 out of 10 match and they wouldn't do a 5 out of 10 transplant. Now they do a few years after my transplant. Now they do 5 out of 10 transplants.
Wow.
So
That is one thing. There is always something on the horizon. There's something, they're working all the time. And so you're just out there doing what you do
right.
because you never know.
Right.
You
But none
never
of us do, right?
None of us know.
So everybody needs to live.
Everybody,
every day.
exactly.
Right. Right.
And
'Cause you never know.
you never know.
And through all this, you've stayed positive with it. You've continued on your philanthropy. You've continued on your charities. You're doing Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
You raised a 1.2 something million dollars the other day. And you are not even talking about slowing down. You're looking at what else can you do for people.
That's what makes me tick. I mean, if I stop doing, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I'll be somewhere and someone will be trying to figure out something, or somebody's in line at the grocery store and they trying to find enough money to pay, or I don't know. It's just, and I sit there and think, if they don't find enough money, I'm gonna pay, or I wish I could help this person.
Little things.
Find out where they're going, because so there's some things that I hear somebody talking about something they need to find out or figure out or whatever, and if I don't know, if I can't help them, it's frustrating to me that I can't help because I wish I could.
Well, like somebody said the other night at the fundraiser, and it might have been Charlie, it might have been somebody else, but they said when you live to give, if you ever stop giving, you'll stop living.
Yeah.
And that's right here. I mean, this is you're a prime example. You're giving it all the time. I mean, you're literally the most selfless person I've ever been able to talk to, and that's just amazing to be sitting in your presence and listening to this, and you're fighting the good fight and being attacked from every angle and keeping your eye on the prize of doing exactly what you know to do, and that's to do good for people, and that's amazing.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming out and sharing the story with us, and I feel honored to have the pressure on me to make it be as big as it's supposed to be, because this is going to be an inspiration for a lot of people that are watching it, no doubt. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Laura, you got anything?
I'm honored.
No, is there anything last that you want to say personally that you think might help somebody else?
As I've gone through these two cancers, several people have said to me, I couldn't do what you're doing. I couldn't be that strong. I tell them, I said, you won't believe how strong you are until you're faced with something like this. And I firmly believe it. I don't think anybody, well, I shouldn't say anybody. I think very few people get diagnosed and just go, well, I give up. I'm not, have you ever known anybody that just
No,
said
Never.
that?
Never.
No.
So I do want to be an inspiration of strength, that people see, fighting the good fight. But I think that I get more publicity about it because of who I am. But there are plenty of other people out there who are, have that same fight in them,
That's
and they're just not, no one's saying to them, oh gosh, look at you. Look, you're an inspiration. But a lot of those people are probably people that said, oh gosh, if that ever happened to me, I wouldn't be able to fight like you are. And they are fighting.
Because we don't really know what's inside of us until we have to.
That's right.
Have to go for
That's
it.
right. But you think about just an instinct of, say, a mom, if someone does something to their kid.
Oh yeah,
Right?
it's like that whole thing. Like you say, you can't pick up a car until somebody's underneath it.
That's right.
I had a friend in high school was in a wreck, and that car ended up on her boyfriend. And she was a few years older than me. She picked up that car off of him.
Wow. You never know how strong you got to be till you got to be
Right.
strong.
So exactly what you were saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, true story.
I love you.
I love you too. Long time.
Long time, and
I love him too.
and I'm so happy.
I love you too.
that. Yeah, and I know
I mean,
you.
I have a new friend. I'm
exactly.
so excited.
I mean,
That's right.
Really, I met you for the first time just at the classic the other day, and I have been. I mean, that night, what I call you, Miss Laura? I said
He did. He called me. He goes, I could see. He said I could see her in her face and her gestures. I could see her whole soul of giving. That night.
That night on that stage, when they gave you that standing ovation, I saw those tears in your eyes. That was real tears. And I said, Miss Laura, we got to have her on the we've got to have her. That is a real giver that was standing on that stage tonight.
Given from the heart.
Absolutely.
Because you love people and you love helping people.
Yep. I do.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
out
you.
with us. It was an honor, a privilege, and
It was an honor for me to be one of y'all's first people.
Hey, 2 hours flew by. Well, thank you so much, and we this has been the Old Boots Podcast, and once again, just like with Miss Jamie, just like with Miss Laura, anytime that you see that you can do something good, you should do something good. We'll see you later.
Well, it's a privilege and honor. I got asked to speak a couple words about Jaime Kaplan, and they said about a minute or so. And first of all, I could talk about Jaime Kaplan for days. She is a extremely brilliant, smart, disciplined, winner, caring, loving, selfless, family-oriented, driven person, and I'll touch on some of those. I said winner. Jamie's high school career, I think she was 126-0. I don't believe there's anywhere in the United States that's like that. But she was able to take that same determination and winning attitude to in the business world and help raise money. And she became a tremendous part of our team at 5-Star. And we've raised millions and millions of dollars over the last 35 years for the rescue mission of Middle Georgia, the volunteer clinic of Middle Georgia, and Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So she is just a very, very, very special person, very task-oriented. When you put her in charge of something, it's going to get done the best way every time. Very efficient with her time. She runs all our meetings for our event, and they're all punctual on time. She understands people's time. And she's just a sweet, caring, loving person. But I'll end it with 3 words for her. That if you said, what's the best 3 words you can give for Jamie? And I would say she's simply the best. Thank you, Jamie. We love you.
Hey, Jamie, congratulations on 500 wins at Stratford. They are so lucky to have you. You embody what a coach is, not just because of the wins, but because of the influence, your story, your strength. You're going to leave a legacy to so many young girls and the game of tennis.
Hey, Jamie. This is Russell and Jane here. Just wanted to send you a video congratulating you on your 500 career coaching win. Amazing, obviously, and your accomplishments athletically are incredible, and just wanted to say congrats.
Hey, Jamie, Martina here. Congratulations on your 500 wins at the Stratford Academy. You embody what a coach and a mentor should be like, and most of all, pass it forward. If there's a word in the dictionary for pass it forward or play it forward, your picture should be next to it, because you are sharing all that knowledge with so many kids. So well done. Congratulations.
When you come out my way, that's why my field stays packed on Fridays. We hunting, fishing, good living, just soaking up every country second we're giving.